The so-called Islamic State says it was behind a rocket attack in the Afghan capital Kabul, which killed 8 people. It came hours before peace talks between the US Secretary of State and the Taliban. Donald Trump's legal options are narrowing in his attempt to overturn his election loss. Republican officials in the key swing state of Michigan have indicated that they would not seek to undo Joe Biden's projected win in that state. The annual G20 summit, which is being hosted by Saudi Arabia, has opened with a call from King Salman for coronavirus vaccines to be made available and affordable to everyone. The summit's being held mainly online because of the pandemic. The United Nations has called for a ceasefire and the creation of humanitarian corridors, as the Ethiopian government says that its soldiers have made further advances in the northern Tigray region.
GMA exclusive involving a mysterious death that has been getting attention all over this country. The mother of 15-year-old Kawan Charles speaking out to our own Janae about why she feels police mishandled her son's case. And Janae Norman here with much more. Janae, good morning to you.
Good morning. Baldwin police are defending their response to Kawan's disappearance, saying they did not drop the ball. His family's attorney, though, shared 6 missing persons cases from the last 2 years in the same parish where Kawan disappeared. Police notified local media in every case. None of those cases involved black boys. And Kawan's family believes that's the difference in his case.
Kawan was a good kid, a loving child. You know, I loved him and he loved me.
This morning, a mother mourning the loss of her son and questioning whether 15-year-old Kawan Charles was murdered.
I cannot sleep at night like I want to. I'm constantly thinking about my son and trying to figure out exactly how he died.
The family says Kawan disappeared and they reported him missing October 30.
We begin in Japan, where coronavirus infections have hit another record. Authorities reported 2,586 new cases on Saturday. The biggest hotspot is the capital, which marked an all-time high of 539 infections. Tokyo's daily count first crossed the 500 threshold on Thursday. Recent figures are more than double the numbers when the city was under a state of emergency. And the major western prefecture of Osaka also reached a record peak of 415 cases. In response to the surge, Prime Minister Suga Yoshihide called a task force meeting. He says he's partially halting government programs brought in to boost travel and dining out.
With regard to the travel campaign, we will stop subsidizing new reservations for visits to areas where infections are increasing.
He says the government will work closely with local governors to decide which areas should be designated high risk. The administration will provide financial assistance to prefectures if governors decide to ask restaurants and bars to shorten their business hours.
I absolutely agree that it's necessary to temporarily curb the campaign. I want to continue working with the central government to rein in the rapid spread of infections.
People on the street seem to welcome the move.
The campaign is for the economy, but it's no good if it helps spread the virus.
Restaurant owners will likely be hit hard, but many of them gave a tentative nod.
It's better to curb the campaign for now and restart it once the number of cases goes down.
A total of over 130,000 cases have been confirmed across the country so far, with about 300 patients now in serious condition. Nearly 2,000 people have died. Japan's COVID uptick has been raising concerns in neighboring countries. Now Singapore is tightening border controls for people visiting from Japan. From Monday, travelers coming from Japan will face 14 days of quarantine. Short-term business visitors from Japan had been exempt from such steps if they met certain conditions. Singapore hasn't reported any community infections for the past 10 days. All its recently confirmed cases, up to around 20 daily, have been from overseas. Suicides by men in their prime are on the rise in Japan. An organization working to prevent people from taking their own lives says the coronavirus pandemic may be to blame. Japan's health ministry says 705 men in the 20 to 50-year age range committed suicide in September. That number is 8.6 percentage points higher than it was during the same month last year. 706 men took their own lives in August. That's a 6.6 percentage point jump from the same month in 2019. The ministry says in September, 640 women committed suicide. It adds the figures for women from June to September all exceeded the numbers recorded during the same months 1 year ago. The head of Tokyo-based NPO Lifelink says many men are concerned about losing their jobs amid the pandemic.
Lots of people who are non-permanent employees or who are self-employed have been coming in for consultations. I think policies that protect people's lives and employment should be continued.
The health ministry has set up a website for people to access if they are in need of help. Individuals can seek assistance by email, telephone, or fax. In Afghanistan, a rocket attack in the capital has left at least 8 civilians dead and more than 30 others wounded. The Islamic State militant group has claimed responsibility. The Afghan government says more than 20 rockets exploded in different parts of Kabul on Saturday morning. Some landed near the presidential palace. Others struck a district where embassies are located, including the U.S.'s. Local police say the rockets were fired from 2 vehicles parked in a northern part of the city. Peace talks between the government and Taliban insurgents began in September, but fighting and terrorist assaults have continued. Early this month, Islamic State militants attacked a university in Kabul. Over 20 people were killed. Many students were among them. A Canadian naval commander has told NHK his country will share information with other nations seeking to enforce international sanctions on North Korea. Pyongyang is suspected of making illicit ship-to-ship transfers of goods on the East China Sea. Commander Michael Stephenson spoke in an online interview following the completion of a regional surveillance mission. Canada also deployed a monitoring helicopter last month.
We witnessed a number of ship-to-ship transfers, both with the ship and from the helicopter. We provided this information ashore. As you mentioned, it will take some time to analyze that information to decide whether or not those were legal transfers or illicit transfers.
The commander said the task was complex as the East China Sea is a waterway crowded with many merchant and fishing vessels.
So trying to figure out which ones are the illicit ship-to-ship transfers is a very complicated effort.
UN Security Council sanctions on North Korea include a cap on imports of petroleum products and a ban on coal exports. But Pyongyang has repeatedly evaded the restrictions through secret ship-to-ship transfers. The Canadian military joined the surveillance efforts in 2018. Other nations involved include the U.S. and Japan.